Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination, but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
I got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo.
Amateur Traveler, episode 409. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about beaches and Mardi Gras and the Azalea Trail as we go to Mobile, Alabama.
Got to sit in one more cafe. I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not today.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Before we get into this week's interview, I do have two news stories for you. The first one may not be much of a surprise. This has been a cold winter in some places, and it has definitely affected hotel booking rates. Canada, in particular, has seen their booking rates cut in half. I guess some of you would rather go someplace warm, like Alabama. In the second news story coming out of England, a mourner got so drunk at a friend's funeral, he woke up 100 miles away in Amsterdam and had no idea how he got there. He woke up because the stewardess announced they were landing in Amsterdam and he didn't ever remember getting on a plane. He said, I took a picture at the airport. I think I was still a little drunk and I was pleased to be there, but then I realized I had no money, nowhere to go, no luggage, no underwear, not even toothpaste. I'd also left my glasses at home, so I was struggling to see. His mother did not send him money to get back. She said he had made his bed and he could lie in it. For links to both those stories, check out the show notes at amateurtraveler.com. Again, this episode is sponsored by the Amateur Traveler. If you're looking for a good travel credit card, if you check out amateurtraveler.com/credit card, you'll see a number of good offers, including some deals that will get you things like 40 to 50,000 miles when you sign up for a credit card and use it for the first couple months. If you do use your miles, try and book something while you're sober. amateurtraveler.com/credit card. I'd like to welcome back to the show Carla Rountree, who's a native of Mobile, Alabama, and her website is theinconsistentnomad.com, and she has come to talk to us about her home state of Alabama. Carla, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's great to be back.
Two things first. One is it Mobile or is it Mobile?
It's Mobile.
I realized that just after I said that. And two, as I said, welcome back to the show. And Carla has been on previously with two friends talking about the country of Namibia in Africa. So this is going to be a little closer to home and much more close to home for you. But I had not done a show in Alabama, and I put the word out that I was interested, and Carla raised her hand and volunteered. Carla, why should someone go to Alabama?
Well, Alabama is a state that I think is overlooked a lot when people think of trips and for vacations. And I grew up on the Gulf Coast in Alabama. There's a very small sliver of the state that sticks down between Mississippi and Florida. It's a lovely area. There are wonderful beaches. It's an area that was founded in the early 1700s. So there's lots of culture, lots of history. And it's even the area where Mardi Gras actually started in the U.S. So there's a lot going on down there. And it's a bit of an underdog in terms of competition for places to visit.
Interesting. I didn't realize, actually, one, that it was that old, and two, the connection to Mardi Gras.
Yeah.
Let's start with what time of year or what day of year you would particularly recommend that someone go to Mobile. I'm thinking that part of Alabama gets a little toasty in the summertime.
It does. If your main intention is to go to the beach and do outdoor activities like lay in the sun or go kayaking or deep sea fishing, the summer is great. It's very popular. But yeah, it is very hot and humid down there. And with summer, you also sometimes have to contend with hurricanes. So that can add a bit of extra hassle to it. But I would say that the spring is the best time to go down there for a couple of reasons. It's very mild. It can be a beautiful temperature. It hasn't gotten that humid yet. And two things that go on in the spring. First one is Mardi Gras itself. Mardi Gras is such a fun celebration down there. New Orleans gets all the hype for being the home of Mardi Gras, but it can also be very overwhelming and a bit more of a wild and crazy party than some people want. But Mobile throws just as great a party, but it's family friendly. Everyone still has a great time. They have all kinds of parades leading up to Fat Tuesday, and it's just as much fun. And the second reason I think to go in the spring is for the Azalea Trail Festival. Mobile is known as the Azalea City, and there have been flowers planted just all over the city for centuries now. And so in the spring, the entire city just lights up with pink, red, and white blooms. They have a big festival that goes along with this. They'll have one of the finest 10K races in the country, and the entire city just comes out to enjoy it, and it's just beautiful, and it's lots of fun.
And you say the Azalea Trail. Where is the other end of the Azalea Trail?
Well, it's not so much considered a trail these days. It was started as a trail originally. They planted flowers strategically along the city to sort of form a trail, but they're so popular now. Everyone plants them in their yard. They're in the landscaping and businesses everywhere. So now the trail, to me, is really more the 10K race that they do, and it goes along the downtown areas. It follows a beautiful route. So the trail itself isn't so much followed anymore. It's just the entire city.
Okay. And if we had, say, a week to visit Alabama, how would you lay out an itinerary? Where would you go?
I would say definitely hit the beach while you're over there. Yeah. The beaches aren't in the city of Mobile itself. There is a county just to the east, and it's across Mobile Bay. And the big beaches are over in that area. There's Gulf Shores Beach and Orange Beach. And if you've ever been to the beaches in Florida, they're just like it. They have pristine white sand, long expanses of sand, and beautiful bluish-green water. So that's one thing to definitely hit up if the weather is warm enough. And then aside from that, there's the USS Alabama, which is docked just off of downtown Mobile. And that, I don't know if it still is, but for a long time, it was at least the largest, the most popular tourist attraction in the entire state. So you can tour the boat, you can just climb all over the guns and the turrets and poke yourself into all the nooks and crannies. And they also have a bunch of airplanes on site. They have a B-52 bomber, World War II airplanes, and along with a submarine on site. So it's a really fun day to check that out as well.
And the Alabama, if I'm correct, is a sister ship to the USS Missouri, which is in Oahu.
You might be correct. I would have to look that up. I actually didn't know that, if that's true. I'm kind of ashamed to admit that.
Well, that's what it looks like when I see a picture of it here. So,
yeah, it is a very large battleship. And one more thing I would say to definitely hit up while you're there is a place called Bellingrath Gardens. It's about 30 minutes, about a 30-minute drive southwest of the city, but it's a gorgeous expanse. It's botanic gardens and an old historic mansion. And it's just been beautifully sculpted. And especially if you're there during azalea season, it's especially spectacular. But it's a 65-acre site that is just gorgeous to see any time of year.
Interesting. And you mentioned the history going back to the early 1700s. What's the best place for us to get in touch with that while we're in that part of the state?
Probably the best thing, at least to start off with, is just to drive around or walk around the downtown area. There are antebellum homes. There's just beautiful examples of French architecture. If you've been to New Orleans, many places will be reminiscent of that. I mean, the city was founded in 1702, so there's lots of things to see in terms of the architecture. And even with the trees, there are oak trees that have been in Mobile for a couple hundred years. And there's one road especially, it's Government Street. They just have rows of oak trees just overhanging onto the street. And so if you take a drive down Government Street, have these beautiful oaks with moss hanging over you and beautiful homes and reminiscent French architecture going by. It's a beautiful way to experience it.
Excellent. Where to next?
If you are particularly interested in military history or Civil War history, there are 3 Civil War era forts that are in the area. One of them is actually smack in the middle of downtown Mobile, so that's probably the easiest one to get to unless you're staying at the beach. Another one is over in the next county. If you go across the bay and toward the beaches, it's down in that area. And then the third one is south of the city of Mobile. It's on a barrier island called Dauphin Island. And so those 3 together played a pretty big role in trying to keep the Union forces out of Mobile Bay and making their way up further into the Confederate States.
And the name of the forts?
The fort that is on the barrier island south of Mobile is Fort Gaines. Fort Morgan is the one that's near the beaches in Baldwin County. And then the one that's in downtown Mobile is Fort Condé.
And what else would you recommend we see it while we're in Mobile?
Another interesting thing you can do is actually take a tour of the river delta. The city of Mobile itself is actually situated where the Mobile and the Tensas rivers empty out into Mobile Bay, and the bay then empties out into the Gulf of Mexico. So there are very complex ecological systems right near Mobile, and so there are boat tours you can take. You can take kayak tours, pontoon tours, even cruises around all the river deltas and just see all the little inlets and see alligators and all different kinds of wildlife. So that's another really interesting thing to do as well.
And it took me a while because I had to look this up to make sure that I had my facts straight. But you were mentioning, and I'm going to go back just a little bit here to the Battle of Mobile Bay and the Civil War. That's where the Union Admiral Farragut issued his famous phrase, "Damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead." So for those of you who are history buffs.
That is right. That's where he said it.
And sorry, I took you off of your trajectory there. Let's go back to...
That's fine.
How would you best get in touch with the art and culture side of Mobile?
There are lots of things. If you're interested in performing arts, Mobile has a resident symphony orchestra. They have an opera company, a professional opera company. There's also the Mobile Ballet. There's a beautiful historic theater downtown. It's called Sanger Theater, and that's where the symphony is headquartered. In fact, I actually got to see Yo-Yo Ma perform with them just a couple of years ago in the Sanger Theater, so that was a real treat. In terms of fine arts, there is the Museum of Mobile. So that can be a good place to start just to get an idea of the culture of Mobile, the history, just kind of get an orientation to it. And then there's also a contemporary art space called Space 301, and that's located downtown as well. And a good place to go if you're interested in science, and especially if you go there on a family vacation, there's the Gulf Coast Explorium, which is located downtown. And it's not fine art, but it's a really interesting science museum. They have an IMAX theater, and they have fantastic hands-on exhibits for children.
Well, and speaking of children, you grew up in the area, so what was the best thing about being a kid in Mobile, Alabama?
Oh, that's a really good question. um, Growing up in Mobile, Alabama was great because the Southern hospitality is just very present down there. The Deep South has that reputation, and it really is true. People are always friendly. They're always helpful. They're always willing to talk to you. And when they say, "Hey, how are you doing?" they actually really want to know instead of just expecting a generic answer of, "Hey, I'm fine." So that was a one great thing about it. And then just having all this rich history and culture was just wonderful for me. I mean, it developed into me having this wonderful love of the arts. I mean, I sing opera on the side now myself.
Okay.
Yeah. My mom took me to the opera when I was 8 years old, and I promptly declared that I was never going to go see that again. But I changed my mind on that. So yeah, my parents took me to the Mobile Opera. They took me to the ballet. There's a wonderful children's theater in Mobile called Playhouse in the Park. They put on some really fine productions, and I got started doing a couple of shows with them. So growing up in Mobile just really helped me form a love of the arts and a love for music and singing.
And I have never been to Alabama. It's one of the few states that I haven't been to. Haven't been to the Deep South, really. What's going to surprise me when I go there?
For Southern Alabama, I think people would find it surprising, especially if they've been to other parts of the state of Alabama, that Mobile and the Gulf Coast area has more in common with the panhandle of Florida, with Southern Mississippi, and with the area around New Orleans than it does with the rest of the state. It really identifies with the outdoors, with the beach, with water sports, with it being originally a French city, just like New Orleans. There's the French and the Cajun influence. So there's a lot going on in one place. You've got the French influence, the Cajun food, the sort of Cajun feel, all with the wonderful Southern hospitality.
So if I went to a restaurant down in Mobile, you say I'm more likely to get something Cajun versus if I went to a restaurant much further north in the state, I'm going to get what? How is it different? Is it fried chicken or is it...
Yeah, you'll definitely find all the regular Southern cuisine in Mobile, but you'll find a lot of Cajun food as well. Seafood is huge down there. You can find just absolutely wonderful fresh seafood, but you'll find definitely the Cajun influence. You can find gumbo, you can find crawfish etouffee and jambalaya and all the wonderful things that you might associate more with New Orleans. They have all of that in Mobile as well, and the Gulf Coast area.
Excellent. What kind of day trips would you recommend while we're based here in Mobile?
Definitely going to the beach if the weather allows for it. From downtown Mobile, it's probably a 45-minute drive. The beaches down there are just beautiful, and they're not quite as built up as some of the bigger beaches in Florida, like Panama City. There are definitely some high-rise buildings, but if that's not your thing, they're big expanses. There's a state park where you can avoid all of that if you want to, and even go camping. Other trips you can take, New Orleans is really only a couple of hours away, 2.5 hour drive, so that's easily doable. If you fancy to go gambling, you can go over to Mississippi, which is about an hour away, so you can go to Biloxi and gamble to your heart's content and catch a few shows. And then also just about 45 minutes to the east is Pensacola, Florida. So of course, more beach options there. They have a big naval presence there. So if you go to Pensacola, and you might get lucky and see the Blue Angels practicing over the water.
Excellent. How about if I wanted to do a day trip and stay in Alabama?
Montgomery, the capital of Alabama, is about 3 hours away. So that might be a little bit far for a trip, but you could check that out. That would probably be the closest thing to a real day trip, because between Montgomery and Mobile, there's not a whole lot there.
Okay. Do you know what the guidebooks recommend that tourists do, and how do they jive with your own recommendations?
Well, I haven't seen any guidebooks, but I did actually check out TripAdvisor to see what they say. And so they do recommend a lot of the same things that I had mentioned earlier. They certainly recommend going to visit the USS Alabama. They highly recommend going there for Mardi Gras, going on a boat tour of some sort, seeing some of the museums downtown. One thing that I was really surprised that they didn't recommend was Bellingrath Gardens, the beautiful botanic gardens. And I'm guessing because it's probably not in the city proper. It's still in the county, but it's such a short drive. It's maybe 30 minutes from downtown, but it's absolutely worth it. And I think that's just one of the top things that should be on the list to do if you go to the Gulf Coast of Alabama.
And I didn't say it the first time you mentioned a short drive. I'm assuming that if we go to Mobile, we're renting a car if we're coming in as a visitor.
Yes, either drive a car, or if you fly in, rent one. It's really difficult to get around without one unless you stay in the immediate city center area.
Okay. Excellent. One warning you would give about going to your hometown.
Be prepared for people to have real conversations with you. Your cashier at the grocery store could strike up a long conversation with you. Your waiter at your restaurant will do the same thing, and it all goes. It just boils down to the Southern hospitality. People do want to get to know you and make pleasant conversation, and they want to show you their best side. So if that's not something you're used to, you might be a little bit surprised by that. So,
And you mentioned waitresses in restaurants. Where would you recommend we eat?
actually, one of my favorite restaurants is, believe it or not, sort of in the middle of Mobile Bay. So, sort of between the city of Mobile and Baldwin County to the east, where the beaches are. There is a road that traverses them. There's the interstate, of course, Interstate 10 connects the two, but there's a U.S. highway, Highway 90, that goes across as well. And there are a few restaurants along that stretch because it's just a really, really thin strip of land that it's on. But this place is called Felix's Fish Camp. And so it's right on the water. You just have beautiful views of Mobile Bay. The food is just fantastic. In fact, they have a crab soup that they're really famous for. The wait staff is just wonderfully friendly. They have great beer on tap. They actually serve a couple of beers there from a brewery in Mississippi that you just can't get outside the area. So that's one of my favorites. Another great place to go is what is actually the oldest restaurant in Mobile. It's called the Dewdrop Inn, and it's really just kind of a hole-in-the-wall diner, but it is an absolute favorite among locals. They're really famous for their hot dogs, of all things, and it's actually the inspiration of Jimmy Buffett's song Cheeseburger in Paradise.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Jimmy Buffett was a native of Mobile. He grew up there, went to high school there, and he credits the Dewdrop Inn for his love of cheeseburgers.
Excellent. Any particular recommendations on where to stay?
It kind of depends on what you're looking to do. If you want to base yourself in Mobile itself, there are a few places downtown that are really nice. If you're looking for something a little bit nicer, a little pricier, there is a place called the Battle House Renaissance Hotel, and that place is really nice on the inside. If you are looking for something not quite as fancy, but still really excellent, the Hampton Inn downtown is a great location. It's smack in the middle of downtown, close to everything. The Holiday Inn downtown is also really excellent. And there's actually another Holiday Inn. It's sort of between the airport and downtown. It's called the Holiday Inn Mobile Airport, but it's not next to the airport at all. That place is also really nice as well. And then if you want to stay closer to the beaches, there is a really well-known place it's a little bit north of the beaches, but it's the Grand Hotel Marriott Resort. And that is a very luxurious place to stay. Then there are lots of hotels all along the beachfront. You can rent beach houses, you can rent condos. And then if you're into camping, you can actually go to the Gulf State Park, which is just east of the city of Gulf Shores. And you can rent a lovely camping spot for yourself as well.
Excellent. Now, I'd have to say, we've been talking here for 27 minutes or something like that. You don't sound like someone who grew up in the Deep South.
Yeah, that's true. My grandmother tells me I never really had an accent. I don't know if that's entirely true, but I have been living in the Mid-Atlantic for over 10 years now, so I think that's had a bit of an effect on it.
Well, and I'm going to assume that you're bilingual, that you speak Yankee as well as speaking Southern. Are there any language tips besides y'all that we should know? Things that are going to trip us up if we go down to Mobile?
Well, I would say it's probably good to know that down there, if you are referring to a soda of some sort, they're all just called Coke.
Coke, right.
The proper response to, do you want a Coke, is...
Sure, what kind? Orange,
yes,
yeah.
Exactly, what kind. So that throws some people. Also, another good thing to know is if tea is offered in a restaurant.
It's a sweet tea.
It is. It is sweet tea over ice. It comes sweetened. So yeah, be forewarned. If you order tea, it will be over ice and it will be very sweet.
Excellent. You're standing in the prettiest spot in southern Alabama. We won't limit it to Mobile here. Where are you standing? What are you looking at?
Oh, that's easy. You are in the small but lovely city of Fairhope, Alabama. It
Mm.
is the next county over in Baldwin County. It's an area called the Eastern Shore because their eastern side is the side that's on Mobile Bay. They have a beautiful pier that juts out into the water. It's just a beautiful, tranquil spot. It has a rose garden and it faces directly west. So you can just sit there at sunset and watch the sunset over the skyline of Mobile. And it's just wonderful, beautiful, and peaceful.
Excellent.
There was one thing I completely forgot to mention, and that was golfing. About the Robert Trent Jones Golf Trail. Have you heard about that?
I haven't, but I will admit the last time I golfed was in junior high, so I probably
Well,
wasn't going to bring it up.
I didn't know if you knew about it or not, but I realized I should probably mention that. Alabama has this collection of golf courses. They were all designed by Robert Trent Jones Sr., and they're all competition level courses. And one of them is located in Mobile. It's called Magnolia Grove. So for anyone that is an avid golfer or just a fan of golfing, that is a great place to go if you want to get some golfing in while you're on your vacation.
Well, and I don't want to brag, but I do have the record for the score at my hometown golf course. No one else has hit the 18 holes in quite as many strokes as I did. But
I bet I could give you some competition.
I've got 3 more questions for you. Before I get to them, what else should we know before we head down south to Alabama?
It's probably good to know that it's a very rainy city, especially if you're there in the warmer months.
Mm-hmm.
Mobile and Seattle are actually the 2 rainiest cities in the country. Except in Mobile, it just tends to rain in one fell swoop, so you'll get a torrential downpour. So not a bad idea to bring an umbrella or a rain jacket.
Okay. Good to know. One thing that makes you laugh and say only in Mobile or only in southern Alabama.
Oh, that's easy. So a few years ago, they started this new tradition on New Year's Eve. A lot of cities have taken after New York and Times Square and dropping something like a ball.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, it's a tradition in Mardi Gras in Mobile to not just throw beads from the floats, they also throw moon pies.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's the big thing, beads and moon pies.
And I'm not sure that everybody knows what a moon pie is, but we're talking about something that has marshmallow and chocolate and cookie.
Yeah, it's a soft cookie, almost like a cake consistency,
Yeah, okay.
but a little bit firmer, with a marshmallow filling in the middle, and it's covered in hard icing. It's either chocolate, vanilla, or banana, and you can find them a lot in gas stations. Actually, if you don't make it to Mardi Gras, you can probably find one at your neighborhood 7-Eleven. But you can collect lots of them if you come to Mardi Gras and get them from the parade floats. But in Mobile on New Year's Eve, they have made a giant moon pie. I think it's made of paper mache. And so they drop that from the top of one of the skyscrapers downtown as their countdown to the new year.
Funny. You really know you're in Mobile when what?
You really know you're in Mobile when you're eating a fantastic po' boy sandwich overlooking the water.
Excellent. Is that a shrimp po' boy, or you have a favorite po' boy?
I personally like oyster po' boys.
Oyster po' boy. I wouldn't even have guessed there would have been an oyster po' boy. Okay.
Yeah, they're oyster po' boys and they're delicious.
Excellent. And just in case somebody is not familiar with what a po' boy is.
It is fried shrimp or fried oysters, but definitely some kind of fried seafood it's basically a sandwich. So yeah, fried shrimp or fried oysters on a hoagie with tartar sauce and maybe a little lettuce, maybe some onion. You can mix it up a little bit.
Right. That kind of sandwich would be a hoagie in some parts of the country, a submarine sandwich in others, or a po' boy if we're down here.
That's right. But only if it has seafood in it.
Only if it has seafood. Okay.
Right.
And if you had to summarize Alabama, Mobile, southern Alabama, your choice, in 3 words, what 3 words would you use?
I knew this question was coming, and I've been trying to figure out my 3 words. I'm going to go with coastal, hospitable, and historic.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, Carla, where can people read more about your travels?
They can go to the website that is www.theinconsistentnomad.com.
Excellent. And what are they going to find when they go there? You are a nomad, but you're not, is really what you're saying.
That's right. I do live permanently in the US, but I do love to travel whenever I can. I've taken extended trips to Europe and to Asia, to Africa. And for 2015, I'm actually planning to go to China for the first time and run a marathon on the Great Wall, which might kill me.
Oh my. I hope you're not going to the
Yeah,
section I went, which is really stairs.
it might be the same section from the pictures I've seen. I'm a little scared.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, thanks so much for coming on The Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for your hometown.
Well, thank you. It's been great to be back.
In news of the community, I had 2 5-star reviews in iTunes recently. I appreciated FF Torched, who said a great travel show. The host doesn't focus on just popular locations, but features many off-the-beaten-path trips. He is great at stimulating discussion with his guests and getting the information to help one plan a trip to this location. Oh, thanks. That's certainly what I'm trying to do. And then I also want to thank Turquoise Lavender, who said happy belated birthday and happy belated 400th episode. Thank you, Chris, for taking us each week to new and interesting places in the world, although the format of the questions follows more or less the same pattern due to the fact that the speakers and destinations are so diverse. Each episode has a different result. That being said, I have come to enjoy repeat guests as well. I also love to follow Chris on This Week in Travel, which sometimes occurs less often than once a week, but understandably so, as the participants are out in the world traveling, which can make coordinating schedules difficult and internet connectivity all the more interesting. Thanks so much, and very, very true. I did want to tell people it looks like we're narrowing down on tour options on where we're going to go for an amateur traveler tour. Check out amateurtraveler.com/trip to join the private Facebook group where we're talking about those things and making some decisions. With that, we'll end this episode of The Amateur Traveler. Remember, if you're looking for a travel credit card, amateurtraveler.com/credit card. If you want to leave a comment on this episode, go to amateurtraveler.com or send me an email to host@amateurtraveler.com. You can also follow me on Twitter at Chris2X, and as always, thanks so much for listening.